Commander Vaxtrell stood at the observation deck of the Galactic Military Academy's notorious training complex 9, his 4 arms crossed in satisfaction as he surveyed the most brutal obstacle course ever designed. His blue-scaled skin reflected the harsh artificial lighting while his secondary eyelids blinked rapidly, processing the latest modifications to the facility. "Computer," he spoke, his mandibles clicking with authority. "Status report on the survival course parameters." "All systems operational," Commander, the AI responded. "Current completion record stands at 7 standard cycles. Fatality rate reduced to 0.03% after last month's safety upgrades." Vax chuckled, a sound like gravel in a food processor. "Excellent. Those safety upgrades were completely unnecessary, but the board insisted. Hey, as if anyone could complete this course fast enough for the old safety measures to matter." Behind him, the door slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Lieutenant Kira N.A. Vac entered, her tentacles rippling with obvious anxiety. "Commander, the new batch of cadets has arrived, but there's a situation." "What kind of situation could possibly concern me? This is the galaxy's premier training facility. We've handled everything from methane-breathing Jovians to silicon-based crystalline beings." Kira's tentacles twisted themselves into what the commander recognized as the gesture for extreme discomfort. "Sir, we've received our first human cadet." The commander's scales shifted from their usual confident blue to a mottled purple of confusion. "A human? One of those Deathworlders from that backwater gravity well they call Earth. Who approved this madness?" "The Galactic Council, sir." Something about diversity quotas and interspecies relations. Kira pulled up a holographic display. "But sir, their physiological readings are concerning. Their endurance ratings exceed our measuring capabilities, and their problem-solving approach is, well, unconventional at best." "Unconventional," Vax scoffed, mandibles flaring. "Lieutenant, this course was designed to push the limits of every known sentient species. It tests strength, endurance, intelligence, and survival skills. It takes a minimum of 7 cycles to complete, and that's if you're among the top 0.1% of graduates." Kira's skin paled to an almost translucent shade. "Sir, the human cadet asked if there was a speed run record." A what? Commander Vax's secondary heart skipped a beat. "They also requested permission to, and I quote, bring snacks for the show." The commander turned back to the window, his scales now flickering between blue and green in rapid succession. Below, the massive course stretched out like a death trap designed by a committee of sadists, which, to be fair, it was. Plasma barriers, gravity wells, psychological warfare chambers, and environmental hazards of every conceivable type filled the massive space. "Well," he finally said, mandibles clicking rapidly in amusement, "at least this should be entertaining. How long do you think this human will last? 2 hours? 3? The facility's lights suddenly dimmed as the warning sirens began to blare. The computer's voice filled the room, warning. "Cadet has entered the course without proper preparation sequence. Timeline protocols violated. Course beginning in 3, 2, 1. Commander Vax's scales turned pure white. "They what?" Commander Vaxtrell and Lieutenant Kira rushed to the entry point of Training Complex 9, arriving just in time to see Cadet Marcus Rodriguez bouncing on the balls of his feet near the starting line. The human wore standard-issue training gear, modified to fit his bizarre bipedal frame, and carried nothing but a small pack strapped to his back. "You there?" Human Commander Vax's voice boomed across the chamber. "This is a highly sophisticated training facility, not some primitive obstacle course." Marcus turned, flashing what several alien species in the growing crowd recognized as a human smile. "Oh hey, Commander, great setup you've got here. Love the plasma fields, very sparkly." The observation deck had begun filling with other cadets and instructors, drawn by the unprecedented spectacle of a human attempting the infamous course. A group of Centaurian cadets, each floating in their anti-gravity pods, whispered among themselves about the human's apparent lack of supplementary breathing apparatus. Several Neptunian cryo-specialists huddled together, their crystalline forms tinkling as they calculated the human's probable survival time in the thermal challenge zones. Cadet Rodriguez, Commander Vax, struggled to maintain his composure, scales flickering between annoyed red and bewildered purple. This course requires extensive preparation. The environmental hazards alone take 3 days to properly analyze. Oh, that's what all these data pads are for. Marcus picked up one of the course analysis tablets, scrolling through it with casual interest. Neat. So it's like a really fancy American Ninja Warrior course, but with more lava and mind-bending physics puzzles. A collective gasp arose from the gathered aliens. Several of the more sensitive telepathic species had to suppress their shock at the humans' casual dismissal of what was essentially a miniaturized death galaxy. The course stretched out before them like a mad scientist's playground. The first section began with the anti-gravity maze, its shifting purple force fields creating an ever-changing labyrinth. Beyond that lay the thermal endurance chambers, where temperatures fluctuated between absolute zero and the surface of a small sun. The psychological warfare section pulsed with an ominous red glow, its neural disruptors designed to break even the strongest minds. And that was just the first quarter of the course. Listen carefully. Human Commander Vax leaned down, all 4 arms spread in what his species considered a gesture of serious instruction. This facility has over 300 different environmental zones. The gravity ranges from 0.1 to 15 standard GS. The psychological challenges alone have sent battle-hardened veterans running in terror. The current record for completion is 7 cycles. Marcus nodded, pulled an energy bar from his pack, and took a bite. 7 days, huh? That's pretty slow. Hey, quick question, Commander. Is there any rule against solving multiple challenges simultaneously? Lieutenant Kira's tentacles went completely rigid. Simultaneously? That's not how the course works. Each section builds upon the last, creating a carefully calibrated progression of. Cool, Marcus interrupted, finishing his energy bar and stuffing the wrapper in his pocket. But like hypothetically, if someone were to, say, use the anti-gravity field generators to solve the thermal challenge while completing the psychological warfare section, that would be allowed, right? Commander Vax's mandibles clicked rapidly in confusion. That's physically impossible. The systems aren't even connected. Awesome, Marcus grinned, pulling a small water bottle from his pack. Oh, and is there a penalty for breaking the course record? Because I've got dinner plans in about. He checked a primitive timepiece on his wrist, 2 hours. Before anyone could respond, Marcus had already started jogging toward the entry point. The assembled crowd of alien cadets and instructors watched in horrified fascination as the human casually approached what they'd spent weeks preparing to face. Computer Commander Vax called out, his voice strained. Begin recording all sensor data. I want every moment of this madness documented for the inevitable accident investigation. Acknowledged, the computer responded. Though I feel compelled to point out that Cadet Rodriguez's vital signs indicate he is, in his words, having a blast. The human's voice echoed back from the course entrance. Last one to the psychological warfare section is a rotten egg. No one in the crowd understood the reference, but they all recognized the sound that followed, something alien yet unmistakable, a sound that would haunt Commander Vax's nightmares for cycles to come. Human laughter dot from the rapidly crowding observation deck. Commander Vaxtrell watched in mounting horror as Cadet Marcus Rodriguez stretched casually at the starting line. Around him, holographic displays showed the course's standard preparation protocols, a meticulously crafted 7-day schedule that every cadet was supposed to follow. A1 through 3 Lieutenant Kira recited nervously to the gathered crowd, her tentacles gesturing at the displays. Environmental analysis and adaptation planning. Day 4, equipment calibration and resource allocation. Day 5 and 6, simulation runs and strategy optimization. Day 7, final preparations and mental fortification. But he's just. Stretching, a Mercurian cadet observed, their mercury-based form rippling with confusion. Indeed, Marcus had moved on to what appeared to be jumping jacks, earning baffled stares from the assembled alien cadets. Each had arrived with hover carts full of specialized equipment, survival gear, and emergency backup systems. The Andromedan twins had brought an entire portable laboratory for analyzing environmental hazards. Computer Commander Vax barked, Explain the challenge parameters to this clearly suicidal human. The AI's voice filled the chamber. Training Complex 9 consists of 300 distinct environmental challenges. Zone 1 anti-gravity maze with randomly shifting gravity wells ranging from 0.1 to 15 gs. Recommended completion time 16 hours. Sounds fun, Marcus called out, now doing what appeared to be arm circles. Zone 2 thermal endurance chamber. Temperature fluctuations from 3 Kelvin to 5,000 Kelvin. Recommended completion time 12 hours. Perfect for my cardio day. Zone 3 psychological warfare section. Neural disruptors calibrated to 47 different species brain patterns. Recommended completion time 20 hours. Oh neat, like those escape rooms back home. With each description, the alien cadets grew more concerned. A Jovian cadet, floating in their pressurized environment suit, turned all 7 eyes toward Commander Vax. Sir, shouldn't we stop him? The neural disruptors haven't been calibrated for human brain patterns. Exactly. Commander Vax's scales shifted to a smug blue. Perhaps this will teach the human the importance of proper. Wait, what is he doing now? Marcus had pulled out a small device from his pack, which several aliens recognized as an ancient Earth music player. As he put in something called earbuds, he called up to the observation deck. Hey, quick question. If I accidentally break any course records, do I get extra credit? And is there a suggestion box? Because I've got some ideas about improving the efficiency of this setup. Lieutenant Kira's tentacles twisted into knots. Cadet Rodriguez, the course requires careful planning. The environmental hazards alone. Oh yeah, about that, Marcus interrupted, doing a few quick lunges. I checked out the course schematics while eating breakfast. You've got the plasma containment fields running on standard galactic protocols, right? That means they work on the same frequency as the neural disruptors. If you time it right, you can probably use the field harmonics to nullify the psychological effects while simultaneously surfing the gravity waves to regulate temperature exposure. Complete silence fell over the observation deck. Several of the more technically inclined aliens began frantically checking their datapads, running calculations. That's completely impossible, Commander Vax sputtered. The energy requirements alone would. Unless, Marcus continued cheerfully, you use the excess heat from the thermal chambers to power the gravity field modifications. Basic thermodynamics, really. We learned that in high school physics, right after the chapter on projectile motion. Speaking of which, what's the record for the long jump over the lava pit in Zone 4? Before anyone could respond, Marcus had pulled out another energy bar, something labeled extra spicy nacho flavor, which caused several aliens with enhanced olfactory senses to back away rapidly. Computer, he called out, unwrapping his snack, start the timer when I cross the line, okay? Oh, and can you play back my best time when I'm done? I want to try to beat it next week. Commander Vax's scales had turned an unprecedented shade of confused green. Next week. Yeah, Marcus grinned, finishing his energy bar in 2 bites. I figure I should run it a few times to really get the hang of it. You know, for practice. The computer's voice seemed to carry a note of anticipation. Cadet Rodriguez, the course is ready. Please be advised that medical teams are on standby. Awesome. Marcus gave a thumbs up to the observation deck. Hey, anyone want to place bets on which zone I complete first? Because technically I'm thinking of doing the first 3 simultaneously. The moment Cadet Marcus Rodriguez crossed the starting line, chaos erupted in Training Complex 9's control room. Warning lights flashed across every console as the human sprinted, full tilt, toward the anti-gravity maze. Not walked. Not cautiously approached, sprinted. He's going to get himself killed. Commander Vax's scales flashed emergency red. Computer, what's his current speed? Cadet Rodriguez is maintaining a pace of approximately 25 kilometers per hour, Commander. He appears to be whistling. The anti-gravity maze loomed ahead, its purple force fields shifting and swirling in their usual mesmerizing pattern. Any sensible being would have stopped to analyze the pattern, to calculate the shifting gravitational forces, to plan their trajectory. Marcus did none of these things. Instead, he accelerated. Is he? Bouncing Lieutenant Kira's tentacles twisted in confusion as she watched the human ricochet off one gravity well and into another, each movement seemingly random yet somehow precise. A quantum physics specialist from Rigel Beta, watching through all 11 of their probability sensing organs, made a sound like a dying computer. That's not possible. He's using the gravitational resonance of each field to calculate his next movement, but the calculations alone should take hours. Correction, the computer chimed in. Cadet Rodriguez appears to be using what he calls muscle memory and gut instinct. His exact words were, and here, playing recording this is just like that bounce house at my cousin's birthday party, but with more physics. The assembled aliens watched in horror and fascination as Marcus transformed the deadly serious anti-gravity maze into what appeared to be a personal amusement park. He bounded from one gravity well to another, occasionally doing what several observers identified as a backflip, purely, it seemed, for entertainment. Approaching thermal chamber transition, the computer announced. Cadet should begin preparation sequence for temperature adaptation. Commander Vax's mandibles clicked rapidly. Finally, this will slow him down. The thermal preparation alone requires. His words died as Marcus did something that caused several safety officers to faint. Instead of preparing for the thermal transition, he used the momentum from the final gravity well to launch himself directly into the thermal chamber, simultaneously pulling off his outer training jacket to reveal a simple t-shirt underneath. The shirt read, "I survived Earth's weather. This is nothing." Temperature readings are fluctuating wildly, Lieutenant Kira reported, her tentacles now tied in so many knots she'd need professional help to undo them. He's using the residual kinetic energy from the gravity wells to create a localized temperature bubble. That's not how physics works, Commander Vax shouted, all four arms gesturing wildly. You can't just. Update, the computer interrupted. Cadet Rodriguez has begun humming what he calls his workout playlist. Current song, hot, 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 hot. The thermal chamber, designed to push the limits of thermal endurance over several hours, became a blur of motion. Marcus darted between temperature zones, using the extreme differentials to create convection currents that propelled him forward. At one point, he appeared to be skating across a section of flash-frozen floor, using the superheated air above it for propulsion. Approaching psychological warfare section, the computer announced, its tone somehow conveying both professional detachment and morbid curiosity. This, surely, would be where the humans' luck ran out. The neural disruptors were legendary, capable of reducing the most hardened veterans to quivering masses of regret and existential dread. The viewing gallery leaned forward collectively, waiting for the inevitable breakdown. Marcus entered the psychic assault chamber at full sprint, the neural disruptors powering up with their characteristic red glow. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, is he? Singing, a telepathic cadet from Sirius Prime asked in disbelief. Indeed, Marcus had begun belting out something called "Don't Stop Believing" at the top of his lungs, his voice echoing through the chamber as he navigated the psychological hazards like they were merely suggestions rather than reality-bending weapons. Neural disruptor effectiveness at 0%, the computer reported. Cadet's brain patterns are unusual. He appears to be generating what he calls good vibes. What in the name of the Galactic Council are good vibes? Commander Vax demanded. Unknown, sir. But they appear to be completely neutralizing the psychological warfare systems through what Cadet Rodriguez calls the power of positive thinking and really catchy tunes. The human was now halfway through the psychological warfare section, periodically stopping to air guitar during what were presumably important parts of the song. The neural disruptors, designed to break minds, seemed to be having an existential crisis of their own. Sir Lieutenant Kira's voice had taken on a note of resigned acceptance. He's about to reach the plasma barrier gauntlet. Should we? Before she could finish, Marcus had already engaged the plasma fields. Instead of carefully navigating through them as intended, he appeared to be using them as impromptu propulsion systems, redirecting their energy to boost his speed. This defies every known law of physics, a quantum mechanics professor watching from the observation deck declared, throwing their tentacles up in exasperation. You can't just parkour through quantum fields. Correction, the computer chimed in. According to Cadet Rodriguez, and I quote, "Physics is more like guidelines anyway." Commander Vax watched in stunned silence as three of the most challenging sections of his beloved course were reduced to what appeared to be a human playground. His scales had given up trying to match his emotions and had settled on a sort of confused tie-dye pattern. "Time check," he croaked. Cadet Rodriguez has been on the course for exactly 15 minutes and 43 seconds, the computer reported. He has currently completed more sections than any other cadet in history, broken 17 supposedly immutable laws of physics, and according to his vital signs, hasn't even broken a sweat. From somewhere in the course came Marcus's voice, slightly echo-y through the chamber's speakers. "Hey, is anyone hungry? Because I packed extra snacks, and these plasma fields make great popcorn poppers." Commander Vax had lived through 3 galactic wars, 17 diplomatic crises, and one particularly memorable incident involving a malfunctioning food replicator that gained sentience. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for what he was witnessing now. "Sir," Lieutenant Kira announced, her voice wavering. "Cadet Rodriguez is approaching the quantum probability maze." "Excellent," Commander Vax's scales flickered with renewed hope. "Even he can't bypass the fundamental nature of quantum uncertainty. The maze requires careful calculation of every possible quantum state before. He's skipping through it." "He's what?" "Skipping, sir. Literally skipping. And he appears to be playing something called rock, paper, scissors with the quantum probability fields." The quantum probability maze, pride of the Academy's physics department, operated on the principle that every possible path had to be calculated before a safe route could be determined. It was pure mathematics, pure science, pure logic. Marcus was treating it like a game of hopscotch. "That's not. He can't." Commander Vax turned to the Academy's leading quantum physicist. "Explain this." The physicist, a gaseous being contained within a complex electromagnetic field, pulsed in distress. "According to our readings, he's somehow achieving quantum superposition through sheer optimism. He's literally choosing the right path by believing it's there." On the course, Marcus had reached the supposedly impassable section where all quantum states existed simultaneously. Instead of carefully navigating through it, he pulled out another energy bar and called up to the observation deck. "Hey, quick question. If I exist in all quantum states at once, do I get credit for completing the course multiple times simultaneously?" Before anyone could respond, he had taken a bite of his energy bar and stepped into the quantum field. The sensors went wild. "Impossible readings detected," the computer announced. "Cadet Rodriguez is currently existing in 17 different quantum states, 3 of which theoretically cannot exist. He is also, according to these readings, technically having lunch in all of them." The observation deck erupted in chaos. A group of theoretical physics students began frantically rewriting their theses. 2 probability mathematicians started crying in binary. A temporal mechanics professor simply sat down and started laughing hysterically. But wait, Lieutenant Kira's tentacles suddenly went rigid. If he's manipulating quantum states while still carrying the residual energy from the plasma fields and maintaining the thermal differential from earlier. Commander Vax's scales turned pale. "He's not. Cadet Rodriguez appears to be creating a localized space-time anomaly," the computer confirmed. "He is using it to, in his words, take a shortcut." The human had somehow turned the most challenging sections of the course into a self-sustaining loop of physics defying momentum. He was using the quantum uncertainty to power the gravity wells to maintain the thermal differential, the thermal energy to enhance the plasma fields, and the plasma fields to stabilize the quantum states. "It's beautiful," whispered a visiting theoretical physics professor. "He's turned the entire course into one giant perpetual motion machine. It's horrifically wrong and absolutely brilliant." Commander Vax watched as his carefully designed course, meant to test the limits of scientific understanding and physical capability, was transformed into what appeared to be an elaborate playground. His scales, unable to process the emotional overload, began cycling through colors like a malfunctioning disco ball. "Sir," Lieutenant Kira said softly, I think we need to reconsider our understanding of human problem-solving methods. Because they ignore the impossible." No, sir. Because they don't seem to believe in it. From somewhere in the quantum probability field came Marcus's voice, simultaneously from multiple locations. Hey, I think I figured out how to make the quantum states harmonize. Anyone want to hear what quantum uncertainty sounds like as a barbershop quartet? Commander Vax, veteran of 3 wars, master of 17 martial arts forms, and designer of the galaxy's most challenging training course, did something he hadn't done in 30 cycles. He laughed. Hey. Computer, he said, his mandibles clicking with growing amusement. Update the course parameters. Add a new category, human mode. Parameters for human mode, sir. Simple. Throw out every rule we thought we knew and see what happens. Oh, and stock up on those energy bars. Something tells me we're going to need them. The final obstacle of Training Complex 9 loomed ahead. A swirling vortex of antimatter containment fields and temporal distortion waves that had never been completed in less than 36 hours. The temporal terminus, as it was dramatically named, required careful manipulation of causality itself. He can't possibly, Commander Vax began, but at this point, even he didn't believe his own words. Marcus Rodriguez stood before the temporal terminus, casually sipping from his water bottle. So this thing messes with time, right? Cadet Lieutenant Kira called out, her tentacles trembling. The temporal mathematics alone require. Cool. But like if time is relative, and I'm moving really fast, then technically time is already kind of wonky, right? Einstein and stuff. Before anyone could protest this horrifically oversimplified interpretation of relativistic physics, Marcus had pulled out his last energy bar, broken it in half, and thrown one piece into the temporal field. Temporal anomaly detected, the computer announced. Causality breach imminent. Sweet Marcus called out. Hey, past me, catch. To the astonishment of everyone watching, a hand reached out of a temporal eddy and caught the energy bar half. Past Marcus, from approximately 2 minutes ago, gave future Marcus a thumbs up before disappearing back into the time stream. Did he just create a stable time loop using a snack? A temporal mechanics professor whispered in awe. Technically, Marcus shouted, now jogging backwards into the field, I created multiple stable time loops. Past me is helping future me help past me. Who's helping? Well, you get the idea. The sensors exploded with readings as multiple versions of Marcus appeared and disappeared throughout the temporal field, each one passing energy bars, water bottles, and what appeared to be high fives to the others. The temporal mathematics professors in attendance had given up taking notes and were simply rocking back and forth, mumbling about paradoxes. Course completion imminent, the computer announced, sounding almost excited. Total time elapsed 58 minutes and 17 seconds. Marcus stepped out of the final temporal field, straightened his shirt, and grinned up at the observation deck. Around him, several temporal echoes waved goodbye before popping out of existence. So he called out, did I pass? Commander Vax stared at the readouts. 7 days of challenges, 300 obstacles, countless laws of physics casually ignored, all completed in less time than it took most cadets to read the course introduction. Computer, he said finally, his scales settling into a peaceful blue. Official course record. Cadet Marcus Rodriguez has completed Training Complex 9 in 58 minutes and 17 seconds. Previous record was 7 standard cycles. Additionally, he has created 3 new branches of theoretical physics, revolutionized our understanding of temporal mechanics. And according to the cafeteria sensors, somehow managed to eat lunch in 5 different time zones simultaneously. Neat. Marcus was already heading for the exit. Same time tomorrow? I bet I can shave off at least 10 minutes if I bring roller skates. 2 weeks after what became known as the Rodriguez incident, Commander Vaxtrell stood before the Galactic Military Academy's board, his scales a contemplative shade of blue. So the board president began, about the new human protocols. Yes, Commander Vax nodded, all 4 arms clasped behind his back. We've had to completely redesign our understanding of impossible. We're also implementing mandatory snack stations throughout all training courses. The boardroom buzzed with murmurs as they reviewed the footage of Marcus completing the course for the 12th time, each run faster than the last. The latest one involved a skateboard and something called a TikTok dance challenge. And the quantum physics department, another board member inquired. Still recovering. Though they've started a new research branch called Rodriguez probability theory. Apparently, if you don't tell humans something's impossible, they won't bother being impossible. As the meeting concluded, Commander Vax returned to his office, where a new plaque hung on the wall. It read, "Sometimes the best solution is a backflip," displayed alongside a half-eaten energy bar preserved in a quantum stasis field. "Computer," he said, settling into his chair. "Status of today's cadets. 3 Centaurians have requested rollerblades, a Neptunian is attempting to breakdance through the gravity wells, and Cadet Rodriguez is teaching a class called Physics, are more like guidelines, a human's guide to bending reality." Commander Vax's scales shifted to amused purple. "The galaxy," he muttered, "will never be the same."